In here. Hi everyone. I am very blessed to have Michelle McKinney and Orion Foxwood with us tonight. And they're both going to be presenting at Fairy Congress Global, which is January 14th, 15th, and 16th. You can go to fairycongress.com for more information. Um, a little bit about Michelle McKinney is a shamanic practitioner in and teacher in Seattle. She does a 2-year program in advanced shamanic training. And Orion Foxwood, there's a lot to say about him. He is a witch, conjure man, and fairy seer, author of 5 books, I believe,
My fifth
stemming
one.
from fairy enchantments to witchery to conjure work. Michelle will be doing a workshop on releasing ancestral entanglements, connecting to their wisdom. And Orion is going to be, his workshop is casting the golden cord, a magical technique for conscious co-creation. And I think it's fascinating that both of you are going to be talking about ancestral entanglements in terms of deepening our connection to the fairy beings or to the Sidhe. And it's just fascinating that we have Orion being a witch and Michelle, who's got a shamanic background, to have that kind of cross pollination. So I'm kind of curious about what you mean by ancestral entanglements, and if you can give some examples about ancestral entanglements.
So we care, our whole family system, going back to our deepest ancestry, we carry memories of our ancestors. And that family system is a whole and always wants to be whole and is always striving to be whole. And where there are cases where something has happened, a tragedy, a war, slavery, an injury, a family secret, something where someone is kind of pushed out of the family. It's some kind of prohibition in the family. Say there's a religion, and you go against that religion, even if your parents' generation is fine with that. Maybe your grandparents or great grandparents weren't, and so the ancestors might not be happy with you. So the entanglement oftentimes it can be a lot of different things, but if you have a pattern or a problem in your life that no amount of psychotherapy or shamanism or all kinds of things can help, oftentimes you can link that back to a pattern in your ancestry or somebody in your ancestry that you're kind of living their fate as a way to remember them to the family system. And oftentimes it's simple as acknowledging them, but oftentimes there's some kind of healing that can happen, like remembering them, acknowledging them, helping them be at peace, crossing over. Sometimes they haven't crossed over. So it can be many different, many different things. But somehow that pattern lives through us, and we're living a piece of that pattern. It might look very, very different, but we're living a piece of that pattern. And so working with ancestral entanglements is a way of unraveling that so you can fully live your destiny. That's probably the best way I could say it. And it can be very complex, and yet I think what I'm going to be presenting is a simple method that can be really powerful without going into all this stuff. So it's a beginning, so it'll be, because it can seem pretty overwhelming, but I'm
Right.
hope to, excuse me.
Bless you.
Orion, anything you want to add on that? Because you talk, so you're doing a workshop, and then you've got an advanced kind of a longer series, and part of that is um, healing the undercurrent of ancestral entrenchments and entanglements, and unbind intelligence in remission, which is
Yeah.
such a beautiful way of, you have such a beautiful way of words. Could you kind of add on to give your perspective on what Michelle just said?
Well, Michelle said a lot. Michelle has so much wisdom. Um, it's a couple of things that always strikes me when I think about the concept of death and transition, and the two things, and that is there is no way, and there is no death the way we think of it. So to explain that, I often use the concept of trash, right? People say, I threw my trash away. No, you didn't. You threw it out of sight and into convenience, but it didn't go away. We know, as Einstein taught us, that energy is neither created nor destroyed. It moves around. Consciousness moves around, right? So, likewise, when we shape, when we grow out of our shape, right? When we shapeshift, when a person dies, what has died is their familiar shape, but their essence has not. And they continue to swim inside the genetic stream of which we all are a part, right? So we are boats of flesh on a river of blood, a stream that goes all the way back to the first humans. And they're still very much alive within us all. And we all, that's one of my little sayings to say, we are children of one mother, sister and brother, human and other. All of us, everything of earth and everything of this universe. Did you know that the word universe, it's an interesting word, to know the etymology of una versa, one song, one song. And we're all notes in that one song. So there's some ancestral wisdoms I grew up with because I grew up in a Southern Appalachian culture. And one of those is you cannot bless the fruits and curse the roots. The other one was something my mama used to say as well. Mama said that one too. She'd say, no one heals until the ghosts talk. You see, when someone has passed beyond our sight, they passed beyond the physicality, they have not gone away. They are now in the undertow. And we all arrive out of the undertow. We're emergent beings, right? And so we are all born as bridges between the invisible, visible, and intravisible. And we are all born to redeem the ancestors behind us. Because on that river, we are a wave that's now cresting, and we too will go into the undertow. Someone will be born to help redeem us further as we redeemed those in the past. The problem is there is no past. There's only now, and now expended and now anticipated. And we're on a stream of it, right? Like when you're on a river, right? I like the Mississippi because it starts out as really a creek that comes out of a spring, right? Small, you can walk right over it. And over time, passing through influences, contributories, etc., becomes the mighty Mississippi. Most of the big problems we have, the entanglements, the entrenchments, the things going on in our capital, the things going on in our world with disease, etc., they're all big things that came from small things. And so much of ancestral healing is getting to the headwaters of harm until the ancestors are not trapped, until those spiritual forces are not entangled. We are entangled too. And it is quantum healing. I'm not kidding you, because if you can go into that, and you have to go with compassion, the heart that breathes. You can't go at this work, well, I'm going to go heal me. I'm going to go do me. You have to be summoned by compassion, which gives the heart grace, the heart that breathes. And as we go down to heal others, maybe in our family, our ancestors themselves, or the future ones, something happens to us. Because grace brings about the breathing heart that lets go and allows itself to remember again. There can be nothing more important than ancestral healing, human and other. Notice I said human and other.
Yeah.
So I'm Orion. Thank you for your words, and I'm curious. So the Fairy and Human Relations Congress are what we're about is communication and co-creation with the spirits of nature, fairies, nature spirits, Devas, the Sidhe, and a couple of places in your workshop description, you're using these terms co-creation. You're talking about a co-creative call to action for the restoration of the earth. Could you say something about that? Because that is so what we are about at Fairy Congress.
Well, first thing we have to understand is we are earth with human feet. We are earth and heaven, and the product of a benevolent conspiracy between a high father and a deep mother that brought about this incredible being called human. We cannot harm the earth and not harm us. We are not on the earth, we are of the earth, right? We are of the earth. And so the tree of humanity and its effect upon this wonderful earth of which we are an expression has been shaking for a while, summoning us. And the way I look at the Congress, I love the Congress. And I love everyone who comes so much because they are summoned by something they cannot fully explain. Because when you try, and like the Fool on the Fool card of the Tarot, where you have this androgynous being stepping off the cliff of unknowing, right? And all it knows is it must fall into form. It must take that journey. It's looking heavenward, going, "Oh, please, I hope this is the right decision. Guide me, guide me, guide me." While its fears are biting at its feet, going, "Don't do it!" And it's got all the wisdom extracted from its lives before it in its hobo bag, and it steps onto the cloud of unknowing down into form and begins the cycle of life. All of us are like that sacred fool going, something's not right. And my blood says it, my spirit says it. And the something that's not right is I have to step back into an ancient relationship that all of our ancestors of old knew, all of them, because all of us have the blood of the first peoples in us. Where else would it come from? Doesn't matter how far back it is. That's this time. Time's a metaphor, and would this be a good time to say there's a beautiful quick, I could make a quick story. An old elder told me, and that shaped my life, and it shaped the whole concept of co-creation. The truth is there is no creation by itself. It's everything we do involves a relationship with other persons, places, and things. And once we step off that illusion of isolation, we realize we're interwoven into a fabric of destiny together. Something happens and our life begins to breathe. And the co-creative call to action, I believe, has been happening since about the early 1800s. And if you look at the early 1800s to now, you'll see a fast-moving movement of interest in fairy and temple magics and seances and spiritualism and the Golden Dawn, Wicca, the call to indigenous was, and I mean, it's been gathering steam. It's because the ancestors, human and other, have been shaking the tree because they see where we're going if we still keep living in the illusion of isolation, the disconnectedness. That's just a byproduct of a rapidly growing nervous system. That's all it was. And that is causing us to act as though we're separate from nature. And it's causing a type of abandonment, fear, fury, and shame inside of us. And this is a part of the solution. So the story very quickly was, I was a little boy, and this old man used to come down from the mountains because I lived in the Shenandoah Valley, and he'd come down, narrow tooth in his mouth, and he was on his way to the farmer's market, right, to sell hay or something. And he'd always stop by to see my mama. And he would stop by to see me because he was one of the early ones that saw me as a charmer, not one who's like charming, but one who knows the old charms for healing, etc. And he would teach me stuff. And this was one of the first times he came. The truth is, I would listen to his stories, and I would get Mom would write down the charms, and later I'd memorize them. Mostly I was listening because he always brought a can of ginger snap cookies, and I really wanted to get to those. Priorities, right? And so I would listen. But he told me this particular time, they knew me as Mike back there, and he said, Mike, you got to make right with them folk. Them folks, one of the names, the fair folks of the fairy spirits and elven ones. He goes, you got to make right with them folks. Them folk, they could snatch your prayers before they reach the ears of God. They're the original ancestors. We're the visitors. When we break the laws of nature, we can't go to God to help because God don't know how. He gave the world to them. I still get shivers.
So this fairy culture was very much alive in Appalachia.
Oh yeah, it's alive, and it's also alive in all of our roots. Every indigenous tradition worldwide has it. Different words, Menehune in Hawaii, and other names, other names and other beings, the She, the Yatowateg, the Fairy, you name it. They're all over the place. But a secret commonwealth, an invisible, intimate side to nature of which we are a part. There's one more thing. There's an old Scottish saying. It comes from a poem that was about one of the old ballads, and the ballad of, I think this one was True Thomas, I believe. And it said, meddle and mell with the fiends of hell, a weirdless white you'll be, but take and lend with the fairy men, and you'll thrive until you die. Means really to meddle and mell with the things of fiends of hell, meaning those spirits associated with, say, greed and avarice and the things that's hurting us right now, and a weirdless white, a fateless spirit, because you'll be distant from who you truly are and what you truly know. You'll be sinning, you'll be missing the mark. And a weirdless white, a fateless spirit, what worse fate you'll be. Take and land, live in balance with the fairy men or fairy kin. You'll thrive until you die. This event is about how do we come back to what once we knew. Our ancestors, human and other, are there. Believe me, they will uphold us. They already have. I'll shut up now.
You just put it in a nutshell. That's why we're here, building those relationships. And you also talk about magic as being the art of conscious co-creation. Mm-hmm. That's what we're doing here, and we're building strong relationships with our ancestors, with our fairy beings, with the spirits of nature. Yes.
Absolutely. And we have to understand that we ride on the wave that was before us. And we will be a part of a wave to those to come. And human and others, what we have to remember, we arrived here as star pulses. And we've been many things. And now it's time to invite the wisdom of the many things we've been and the many families of life we've been in, the distilled wisdom to arrive. And it will. Mm-hmm. And it will, and it does. It's what do you think has awakened this whole movement? I love the ancestors with everything. I mean, I know Michelle does too. I love them and their mistakes and their wisdom, because nobody learns how to ride a bike without falling off of it. We owe it to them to distill the wisdom and add to it. Heal them, we heal us. We heal everything. Yeah.
So thank you. I think you've just given a really excellent primer on why working with ancestors is important, and why working with the spirits of nature in this conscious co-creation is important. So please join us for the Fairy Congress, January 14th, 15th, 16th. fairycongress.com. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Michelle and Jan, for everything you do.
So great to see you.
Love you. Are we done the recording now? Or
we're getting there.